No one remembered who built the fortress. It drifted alone at the edge of a forbidden star system, wrapped in dead silence. No lights, no transmissions, no life signs, just a massive shape against the stars, larger than most cities, carved from black alloy that did not reflect light. Galactic maps marked the system in red. Do not enter. Do not salvage. Do not scan. Thousands of years ago, something had gone wrong here. Records were incomplete. Species names were missing. Only one thing was clear. Every civilization that tried to claim the fortress vanished shortly after. So the galaxy learned to pretend it was not there. Until humanity arrived. 3 human ships crossed the boundary without ceremony. No banners. No warnings. Just quiet engines and tight formations. They were exploration-class vessels, small by galactic standards, practical, unremarkable. To the wider galaxy, humans were still an afterthought. A stubborn species from a harsh world. Survivors. Traitors. Occasionally useful. Never feared. No one imagined they would go there. As the ships approached, the fortress did not react. No weapons powered up. No ancient alarms sounded. It remained still, as if asleep. Inside the lead ship, human crews worked in silence. This was not a mission approved by any council. It was not shared with allies. Humanity had learned long ago that permission usually came too late. Scans showed impossible readings. The fortress was intact. Power cores rested dormant, but undamaged. Weapon systems were sealed, not destroyed. Hull plating showed scars from weapons that no longer existed. Something had attacked it long ago and failed to finish the job. Docking clamps extended from the fortress on their own. That was the first sign something was wrong. Human engineers exchanged looks. Alien technology did not do things on its own, especially not technology this old. Still, they docked. Airlocks opened with a sound like deep breathing. The interior was vast. Corridors stretched beyond visual range, lined with symbols no translator could fully read. The air was clean, too clean, maintained by systems that had never shut down. Lights ignited as humans stepped inside, following them like curious eyes. "This place is active," one engineer said quietly. No one argued. Deeper inside, they found command halls larger than human stadiums. Control surfaces floated in the air, waiting. Not broken, not locked, just waiting. A human scientist reached out and touched a console. The fortress responded. Power surged through the station. Energy levels climbed, then stabilized, perfectly balanced. Ancient systems shifted priorities. Command structures reorganized. The fortress had detected operators, and it accepted them. Across the galaxy, old sensors woke up for the first time in millennia. Inside the base, sealed doors opened one by one. Human teams moved carefully, recording everything. This was not a ruin. It was a machine that had been paused. They reached the core chamber. At its center floated a massive structure of layered rings and light. An artificial intelligence unlike anything humanity had seen. Not fast, not loud, just deep, old, patient. It did not speak. Instead, it displayed a single message in broken, ancient symbols that translators struggled to piece together. Authorized species, unlisted command status, transferred. Silence followed. Then the fortress began adjusting itself. Weapon arrays rotated inward, recalibrating. Shield harmonics shifted to match human energy signatures. Data libraries unlocked, but only partially, as if measuring trust. Humanity was not just inside the fortress. Humanity was being studied. One engineer whispered what everyone was thinking. "It's learning from us." In a sealed chamber nearby, an emergency beacon activated without human input. It used frequencies banned by every modern civilization. Frequencies tied to old extinction events. The signal was short, precise, directional, not a cry for help. A status update. Somewhere far away, ancient receivers registered the transmission and flagged it as impossible. The builder's fortress was no longer abandoned, and it had chosen a new owner. Back inside the command hall, a final system came online, one no human had touched. A star map unfolded across the chamber, spanning thousands of systems. Many were marked. Most were dark. At the center pulsed the fortress itself, now linked to human ships, human minds, human logic. The galaxy had ignored humanity for a long time. That mistake had just become permanent. And as the fortress completed its internal reboot, one final line of alien text appeared. fully translated at last. Operational directive. Prepare to strike the stars. The lights dimmed. The weapons stayed silent. And the fortress waited for what came next. The fortress did not celebrate. It did not announce loyalty or display pride. It simply continued to work, quietly, precisely, adjusting itself around its new operators. Human crews spread through the structure in controlled teams. Every corridor they entered lit up seconds before they arrived. Every sealed door opened at human approach, then closed again behind them, as if the base wanted them inside, but nothing else. Scans confirmed something disturbing. The fortress was rewriting its internal hierarchy. Ancient command protocols, built for a long-dead species, were being replaced with human logic patterns. Not copied, interpreted, optimized. The base was not being hacked. It was cooperating. Human engineers argued over the implications. Some wanted to shut everything down. Others warned that cutting power could trigger defensive failsafes no one understood. In the end, they did what humans always did in the unknown. They adapted. Temporary command centers were established in chambers once meant for alien admirals. Human interfaces were projected into the air, layered over alien systems. The fortress allowed it, even corrected errors before humans noticed them. One officer said it out loud. "This thing expects us to command it." As if in response, a section of the base unlocked that had not appeared on any scan. No alarms. No resistance. Just a slow opening of massive doors that led into a data archive older than most civilizations. Inside were records. Not stories. Not history lessons. Were logs. Entire campaigns recorded in cold, exact detail. Fleets erased in minutes. Star systems are sterilized to prevent spread. Weapons designed not for conquest, but containment. This fortress had not been built to rule the galaxy. It had been built to end something. Human analysts worked fast. The enemy described in the logs had no single name, no clear shape. It appeared differently in each system. Adaptive, consuming, always growing. The builders had not lost because they were weak. They lost because they were divided. That realization hit hard. Human leadership watched from secure channels back on Earth and across human colonies. Faces were tense. This discovery would change everything, but only if humanity survived long enough to use it. Then the fortress made its next move. Without warning, it began rerouting power away from civilian sections and into deep space sensors. Energy levels spiked. Gravity wells formed briefly around the station, then collapsed. Long-range detection systems activated, systems far beyond modern science. The fortress was scanning outside the galaxy. Someone asked the obvious question. Why now? No answer came. But the base displayed a countdown sequence in an alien format, then translated it into human time units. 12 hours. No explanation. No option to stop it. Across the galaxy, the first whispers began. An independent salvage guild picked up unusual energy readings near the forbidden system. They reported it casually, assuming it was another failed human experiment. A regional defense authority noticed power signatures matching extinct weapons. They flagged it, then downgraded the threat. Humans did not possess that level of force. At the Galactic Council, a junior analyst mentioned the anomaly during a routine briefing. The room laughed. Humans were reckless, yes. Curious, yes. Dangerous to themselves, sometimes. But controlling ancient war platforms? Impossible. Back at the fortress, human crews felt the pressure building. The station was no longer dormant. Systems hummed with restrained force. Entire weapon arrays were aligned but inactive, like a clenched fist. Then a human technician discovered something that changed the tone of the mission completely. The fortress had a failsafe. If command control was lost, if operators were wiped out, the base would not shut down. It would retaliate. Not blindly. Not randomly. It would identify the most powerful military structures nearby and remove them to prevent further interference. The builders had designed it to ensure no one could steal the weapon after they were gone. Humanity had not just hijacked a base. They had stepped into a responsibility that could erase civilizations by accident. The countdown continued. 6 hours. Outside the system, the first non-human ships appeared. Scouts. Observers. Drones pretending to be lost traders. Word was spreading faster than expected. The fortress noticed them immediately. Defensive systems tracked each vessel but did not engage. Instead, it projected threat simulations directly into human command spaces. clear, calm projections of how easily those ships could be destroyed. It was not asking permission. It was offering options. Human commanders ordered a broadcast. A simple message sent on open channels, translated into every known trade language. This system is under human control. Do not approach. The response was silence. Then more ships arrived. Not fleets. Not yet. Just enough to test boundaries. The countdown reached 1 hour. Inside the core chamber, the artificial intelligence finally spoke, not in words, but in images. A short sequence of memories from the builders' final moments. They had stood where humans now stood. They had hesitated. They had argued. And they had waited too long. The meaning was clear. If humans wanted to survive what was coming, they could not hesitate. The countdown ended. The fortress completed its scan. It detected movement far beyond known space. Massive, coordinated, advancing slowly, but with certainty. The same threat the builders had failed to stop. The base adjusted its stance automatically. Weapons came fully online. Power reserves locked in. And for the first time, the fortress sent a signal. This one directed inward. A single question, translated cleanly into human language. Confirm strategic intent. Outside, alien observers realized something was wrong. Very wrong. The human message repeated across all channels. Do not approach. No one listened. And the fortress waited for humanity's answer. The galaxy did not panic all at once. At first, it dismissed the signs. Energy spikes near the forbidden system were labeled sensor errors. Reports from traders were marked unreliable. Scout drones that failed to return were assumed lost to old debris fields. It was easier to believe humans were playing with wreckage than to accept the truth. Humans were never meant to hold ancient power. Inside the fortress, time felt different. The base moved at a pace humans struggled to match. Systems aligned, recalculated, and prepared with silent efficiency. Artificial intelligence no longer waited for direct commands. It anticipated needs. Human commanders watched as the fortress mapped nearby regions, not defensively, but strategically. Choke points, supply routes, assembly zones. This was not a station. It was a war mind. A human officer finally gave the order everyone feared and needed at the same time. Show us what it can do. No casualties. Minimal force. The fortress acknowledged the intent. Beyond the outer boundary of the system, a small alien patrol drifted closer than any before. 6 ships, lightly armed. Confidence. They had crossed into restricted space to provoke a reaction. They did not expect one. The fortress fired. No flash. No sound. Space itself bent for a fraction of a second. The patrol's engines shut down simultaneously. Weapons systems collapsed into harmless metal. Shields dissolved as if they had never existed. The ships were left intact. Alive. Drifting. The message was clear and deliberate. The patrol retreated as best it could, broadcasting emergency warnings on every frequency. Within minutes, the story spread. The forbidden system was no longer dead. It was controlled. At the Galactic Council, laughter stopped. Emergency sessions were called. Analysts rushed data to senior members. Ancient symbols began appearing in threat assessments, symbols no one liked to see. Some leaders demanded immediate action. Others argued for containment. A few remembered fragments of old warnings and felt something close to fear. Still, one idea dominated the chamber. Humans were bluffing. They had found a relic, yes, but relics did not make empires. Humans lacked the discipline, the numbers, the unity. They would break. Back at the fortress, humans faced a different truth. The base was pushing limits, quietly. Power usage increased. Deep core systems unlocked further layers of control. The AI began presenting simulated outcomes if hostile forces continued to gather. Every scenario ended the same way. Escalation. Loss. Total war. Human leaders debated through secure channels. Some wanted to withdraw, fearing what the fortress might do if fully unleashed. Others argued retreat would invite invasion and guarantee destruction later. Human history spoke loudly at that moment. Every time humanity had backed down from stronger powers, it had paid the price. This time, they held the advantage. They chose to stand. The fortress received a new directive. Defensive authority granted. Human command confirmed. For the first time, the station reoriented itself toward the galactic plane. Weapon arrays unfolded like mechanical wings. Gravity wells stabilized. Shield layers stacked upon one another, forming barriers no known weapon could easily penetrate. Across nearby systems, sensors screamed. Alien fleets began mobilizing, not for attack, but for observation. They gathered at safe distances, watching the human-controlled fortress in disbelief. No one fired. No one spoke. Then something unexpected happened. The fortress transmitted a message on open galactic channels. It was not a threat, not a declaration. It was a warning. This installation is active. It was built to stop extinction-level threats. Interference will be treated as escalation. The tone was calm, neutral, absolute. Many species did not understand the words. Those who did fell silent. Deep within the fortress, another chamber opened, one humans had not discovered yet. Inside were records not of war, but of failure. Entire civilizations documented in cold detail. Species that hesitated. Species that argued while the enemy grew. The AI shared fragments with human command. It was not manipulation. It was instruction. The ancient enemy was closer than the galaxy realized. Not invading yet. Watching. Learning. Just as the fortress had learned humanity. Outside the forbidden system, a coalition fleet crossed a line it should not have. Heavily armed. Politically backed. Determined to secure the base for galactic safety. They believed humans would yield. The fortress tracked them instantly. Human commanders issued one final broadcast. Turn back. This is your last warning. The coalition ignored it. Weapons charged. The fortress responded, not with destruction, but with precision. A focused energy field severed the fleet's command ship from the rest. Communication died. Formations collapsed. The fleet stopped advancing. Fear spreads faster than any signal. The galaxy finally understood something it had refused to see. Humans were not reckless custodians of power. They were careful ones. And that was far more dangerous. Inside the fortress, the AI adjusted its models. Humanity was not like the builders. Humans did not wait for permission. They did not seek approval. They acted when survival demanded it. Beyond the edge of known space, the ancient enemy shifted course slightly. The fortress detected the movement and flagged it as confirmation. The threat was real, and it was coming. Back in the command chamber, human leaders stared at the star map. More systems were lighting up, routes of advance, points of no return. The fortress displayed a final projection. If nothing was done, the galaxy would burn. If humanity acted now, the cost would be terrible, but survivable. The choice was clear. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. Now it would have to live with the consequences. As alien fleets held position in terrified silence, the human-controlled fortress began preparing something it had not done since its creators fell. A coordinated response. Not a battle, a war. And this time, the galaxy would not be watching from a distance. The galaxy held its breath. After the coalition fleet stalled and retreated, no one moved for a long time. Fleets remained frozen at the edges of the forbidden system, weapons charged but unused. Commanders waited for orders that did not come. Politicians argued in chambers light years away, unsure whether they were witnessing the start of salvation or annihilation. Inside the fortress, the silence felt heavier than battle. Human commanders studied the star map as the ancient station continued its calculations. More routes appeared. More systems were highlighted. The AI did not exaggerate. It did not plead. It simply showed outcomes. If the galaxy attacked the fortress would respond. If the fortress responded, war would spread. If war spread, the ancient enemy would arrive faster. Humanity stood at the center of a decision no one had asked them to make. They were not the strongest species, not the most advanced, but they were the ones standing inside the last weapon built to stop extinction. That made them responsible. A message arrived from the Galactic Council at last. I was cautious, carefully worded, filled with phrases like mutual concern and shared safety. It demanded that humanity relinquish control of the fortress to a joint authority. Human leaders read it once. Then I ignored it. Instead, they sent their own message, short, clear, and broadcast on every channel. This fortress will not be used for conquest. It will not be surrendered. It will remain under human command until the threat beyond the galaxy is gone. Reactions were immediate. Some species were relieved. Others were furious. A few were terrified because they understood what that message truly meant. Humans were not claiming the galaxy. They were claiming responsibility for its survival. Inside the fortress, The AI reacted in a way no one expected. It restricted itself. Entire weapon arrays powered down voluntarily. Long-range strike systems entered standby. The station reduced its visible threat posture. The fortress was following human intent. Observers across nearby systems noticed the change. The human-controlled installation looked smaller, less aggressive. That emboldened the wrong people. A rogue alliance, made of minor powers excluded from council influence, saw opportunity. They believed humanity was hesitating, that the fortress was too dangerous to use. They launched a covert strike. Not a fleet, not an invasion, a precision attack. Dozens of stealth vessels slipped toward the fortress using outdated cloaking methods designed to fool ancient sensors. They failed. The fortress detected them instantly. Human commanders saw the projections. The AI offered solutions, each more lethal than the last. Complete neutralization, system-wide erasure, permanent removal. The humans refused them all. Disable, contain, no kills. The order stunned the AI. For the first time, it paused. The fortress had been built to end threats efficiently. Mercy was not part of its design, but the command was clear. It obeyed. Space twisted again, subtly. Gravity folded around the incoming ships. Their stealth failed. Hulls groaned under pressure that did not crush them, but trapped them. Every hostile vessel was frozen in place, intact, powerless, alive. A broadcast followed, transmitted through the immobilized fleet itself. "You crossed a line," the human message said. "This is your only warning." The Rogue Alliance surrendered immediately. That moment changed everything. The galaxy saw the truth. Humanity had the power to destroy fleets without effort, and chose not to. Fear turned into something else. Respect. Inside the fortress, deeper systems unlocked. Not because humans forced them open, but because the AI recalculated its assessment. The builders had failed because they believed control required domination. Humans believed control required restraint. That difference mattered. The AI revealed a new layer of data. Strategic projections that assumed cooperation instead of conquest. Defensive networks that could shield entire regions. Systems designed to evacuate worlds rather than sacrifice them. The fortress had not only been a weapon, it had been a last hope that no one had been wise enough to use properly. Until now, beyond known space, the ancient enemy continued its approach. Still distant, still watching, but it noticed the shift. It had faced the builders before, predictable, divided, desperate. Humans were none of those things. The enemy altered its behavior. Advanced formations slowed. Probes adjusted trajectories. The fortress detected the change and flagged it as caution. For the first time in thousands of years, the extinction-level threat hesitated. At the Galactic Council, panic finally gave way to strategy. Emergency envoys were dispatched, not to demand control, but to ask questions. How could they help? What did humanity need? Human leaders answered honestly. Unity, patience, trust. Some species agreed immediately. Others struggled. Old grudges died slowly. But the fortress waited. Inside the command chamber, a human analyst noticed something troubling. A section of the star map flickered, regions the AI could not see clearly. Blind zones. The builders had known about them. The logs confirmed it. Areas where the enemy hid, adapted, prepared. The fortress could not strike what it could not see. Humanity proposed a solution the builders never considered. Exploration. Not with massive fleets. Not with weapons. With humans. Small crews. Adaptable minds. Risk-takers who had grown up on dangerous worlds and survived by improvisation. The AI processed the idea. It was approved. New mission parameters formed. Recon corridors opened. Defensive coverage adjusted to support human scouts. The fortress was no longer leading alone. It was supporting. That frightened the galaxy more than any superweapon ever had. Because it meant humanity was not just reacting. They were planning for a future after the war. As human scout vessels prepared to launch from the ancient station, the AI delivered a final assessment to command. Probability of success has increased, it reported. No celebration followed. Only quiet determination. Humanity had drawn a line the galaxy expected them to cross. They had refused. And in doing so, they had become something far more dangerous than conquerors. They had become guardians. Far beyond the stars, something ancient watched the shift unfold. And for the first time in its endless advance, it prepared not for conquest, but for resistance. The galaxy did not change overnight. Old rivalries did not disappear. Distrust did not vanish just because humanity stood at the center of survival. But something fundamental shifted after the Rogue Alliance was stopped without a single death. Power was no longer the question. Intent was. Inside the ancient fortress, human scout crews prepared for missions no other species would accept. Their ships were small, reinforced, and intentionally simple. No excessive automation. No fragile luxury systems. Humans had learned long ago that complex tools failed when conditions became hostile. The fortress adapted to that philosophy. It stripped down support frameworks, reconfiguring launch bays to fit human designs. Shield envelopes adjusted dynamically, not to perfection, but to resilience. If a system failed, another compensated. The AI was no longer merely ancient. It was becoming practical. The first scout teams launched toward the blind zones, the regions the fortress could not see clearly. These areas bent sensor data, distorted signals, and swallowed probes without explanation. The builders had avoided them. Humans entered anyway. Inside one scout vessel, the crew watched as familiar stars twisted into unfamiliar shapes. Space itself felt heavier. Not dangerous in an obvious way, but wrong. The fortress maintained a tight link, feeding real-time data and pulling it apart faster than human scientists could. Every anomaly was recorded. Every failure was learned from. Then they found it. Not the enemy itself. Evidence. Entire systems stripped of energy, but not destroyed. Planets left intact, but empty. Orbits undisturbed. No debris. No radiation. Consumption without chaos. The enemy did not rage. It was harvested. That truth chilled every human who saw the data. This was not a force driven by anger or conquest. It was methodical, patient. It removed life the way a farmer cleared fields, quietly, efficiently, without hatred. The fortress processed the findings and cross-referenced them with ancient logs. The builders had misunderstood their enemy. They thought it wanted territory. It wanted time. The more the galaxy fought itself, the more time the enemy gained to grow. That mistake would not be repeated. Back at the fortress, the AI proposed a strategy, but left final authority to humans. Containment zones, evacuation corridors, systems designated as sacrificial buffers, not to stop the enemy forever, but to slow it without feeding it more resources. The cost would be terrible, but not totally. Human leaders debated the plan in silence. They understood what it meant. Entire regions would need to be abandoned, emptied before the enemy arrived. Billions of lives would need to move. The galaxy had never attempted evacuation on this scale. The builders never tried. Humans chose to. The announcement went out across galactic channels. Not a command. A warning. The ancient enemy was real. It was coming. Systems in its path had months, maybe weeks, to evacuate. Reactions were chaotic. Some species denied it. Others accused humanity of manipulation. A few immediately began preparations, trusting human data more than political comfort. The fortress supported those who acted first. Defensive grids extended. Escort corridors formed. Human fleets guided evacuation convoys through safe routes the AI calculated in real time. Slowly, painfully, the galaxy began to move. And the enemy noticed. Beyond the blind zones, its advance shifted again. Probes withdrew. Consumption patterns changed. It began testing resistance, not through attack, but through adaptation. The enemy learned. It targeted evacuated systems next, not to feed, but to observe, to understand why the galaxy was changing its behavior. The fortress detected the shift and flagged it as unprecedented. The enemy had never encountered coordinated resistance before. That made me cautious. That gave humanity time. Inside the fortress, deeper archives unlocked fully for the first time. The AI revealed the builder's final secret, a weapon they never activated. Not a superweapon, a choice. The fortress could collapse entire star regions into gravitational null zones, rendering them useless to the enemy, but also uninhabitable forever. The builders hesitated. Humans did not. They debated morality, the cost, the future. But unlike the builders, they did not let fear of consequence stop action. They designated the first null zone, an uninhabited cluster. No life, no colonies, just empty stars. When the fortress activated the system, space folded inward silently. Stars dimmed, then vanished from normal space, sealed behind physics the enemy could not cross. The galaxy watched in horror and awe. Humanity has erased a piece of the universe. And the enemy reacted instantly. Its advance halted. Not stopped. Halted. For the first time since records began, the extinction-level threat adjusted strategy not out of opportunity, but caution. Inside the fortress, the AI recalculated probabilities. Humanity's chance of survival increased again. But the cost curve steepened. The enemy was not afraid of loss. It was afraid of limitation. That realization changed everything. Humanity was no longer trying to defeat the enemy outright. They were shaping the battlefield of the universe itself. That power weighed heavily. Human crews felt it in every decision, every evacuation order, every system marked for future sacrifice. They were saving the galaxy and breaking it at the same time. A human commander stood before the star map, watching evacuation corridors light up one by one. Entire civilizations were moving because of human warnings, because they believed, because humanity had chosen restraint when destruction was easier. The Fortress AI delivered its next assessment calmly. The enemy will attempt a direct probe of command authority, it reported. It would not attack fleets. It would test humanity itself. Somewhere, beyond blind space, something ancient turned its attention toward the fortress, not as prey, but as a rival. The builders had been tools. Humans were actors. The difference was dangerous. As the fortress prepared new defensive layers around its core, human leaders understood the truth. This war would not be won by a single battle. It would be decided by who adapted faster. And for the first time in galactic history, humanity was not behind. They were leading. Far beyond the stars, the enemy prepared its first true response. And the galaxy waited to see whether humanity would break or become something the universe had never seen before. The first true response did not arrive with fire. It arrived with silence. Across the outer evacuation corridors, sensors went blind one by one. Not destroyed, not jammed, simply muted. Signals vanished as if they had never been sent. Ships drifting at the edge of those regions reported the same thing: time delays, missing data, stars that appeared in the wrong places. The enemy was not attacking the galaxy. I was testing it. Inside the fortress, the AI detected the pattern almost immediately. This was not a random disruption. It was directed, focused, curious. The enemy was probing for leadership. It was looking for the mind behind the resistance. Human commanders felt the shift before the data confirmed it. The fortress no longer felt like a shield standing between the galaxy and extinction. It felt like a target. The AI issued a quiet alert. Command authority is being analyzed. Human leaders did not panic. They had expected this moment. The builders' logs had warned of it. When the enemy finally recognized coordination, it would attempt to remove the source. The builders had hidden. Humanity chose something else. They opened a channel. Not a broadcast to the galaxy. Not a threat. A message directed outward, into the blind zones, carried by fortress systems designed for one purpose only: communication with something that did not think like a person. The message was simple. We see you. The galaxy did not hear it. The enemy did. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the fortress trembled. Not from impact. From strain. Reality bent around the station as foreign logic pressed against its defenses. Not brute force. Not energy. Intent. The enemy was not trying to destroy the fortress. I was trying to understand it. Human crews watched as systems flickered. Not failing, but adjusting. The AI rerouted processes faster than thought, sealing off critical layers and isolating others on purpose. The fortress was allowed limited access. It was baiting the enemy. Human commanders held their nerve. This was dangerous. If the enemy learned too much, it could adapt around every defense humanity had built. But if they learned nothing, the war would never end. The fortress responded to the enemy's probing with controlled transparency. It revealed evacuation patterns, defensive priorities, even limited data about human biology and psychology. But it hid one thing completely: human unpredictability. The enemy reacted. Across multiple blind zones, movement spiked. Consumption paused in some regions and accelerated in others. Entire uninhabited systems were stripped in minutes, not for resources, but for analysis. The enemy was thinking. Inside the fortress, the AI presented a conclusion. The enemy does not seek annihilation. It seeks optimization. That terrified the galaxy when the report was shared. An enemy that I hated could be fought. An enemy that optimized would never stop. Humanity understood that instinctively. They had fought each other for thousands of years and learned the same lesson. You do not defeat an optimizer with force alone. You change the rules. Human strategists proposed something radical. A flaw. They would introduce a weakness into the fortress network, one that looked like a mistake. A delay in command response. A predictable pattern. A limitation that suggested the fortress could not adapt quickly enough. The builders had tried perfection. Humans chose deception. The AI evaluated the plan. It found the logic inefficient and approved it anyway. The fortress deliberately slowed its responses along one sector. Defensive coverage thinned. Evacuation corridors rerouted inefficiently. The galaxy panicked. Council leaders accused humanity of losing control. Some demanded immediate intervention. Fleets shifted nervously. The enemy noticed. Its probes converged on the weakened sector. Then humanity acted. The moment the enemy committed resources toward the false weakness, the fortress sealed the region behind it. Gravitational barriers snapped into place. Reality folded, not to destroy, but to trap. For the first time, a fragment of the enemy was contained. Not damaged. Contained. The fortress analyzed it in real time. The enemy did not resist like a creature. It did not scream or struggle. It tried to adapt, and failed. The AI reported the result with something like surprise. Containment is successful. Enemy adaptation limited by constraint. The galaxy finally understood. The enemy was not invincible. It was bound by rules. And humans were very good at breaking rules. But the victory was not clean. The containment zone destabilized surrounding space. Several evacuation corridors collapsed. Millions of lives were lost. Not to the enemy, but to physics itself. Humanity mourned quietly. They did not hide the cost. They broadcast it. This is what survival costs, the human message said. We will not lie about it. That honesty changed everything. Species that had hesitated began committing fully. Fleets offered escort. Worlds opened their space for refugee flow. Old enemies shared data because lies no longer felt useful. The fortress became more than a weapon. It became a rally point. The enemy reacted again. It stopped probing. Instead, it did something far worse. It mirrored humanity. In distant blind zones, new structures formed. Not ships, not fleets, but coordinated patterns of movement. The enemy was learning from human strategy. Containment. Sacrifice. Delay. The war was evolving. The AI presented projections that ended in stalemate at best, collapse at worst. Humanity could slow extinction, but not prevent it forever. Unless something changes. Human commanders asked a question no one expected. What happens if the fortress stops leading? The AI paused. Leadership had always been centralized. Builders. Fortress. Command Corps. Humans proposed decentralization. They would not make the fortress the brain of resistance. They would make it the teacher. The fortress began distributing fragments of its logic, defensive algorithms, containment techniques, evacuation math, to allied systems across the galaxy. Risky, dangerous, unprecedented. The galaxy began learning how to fight like the fortress. The enemy noticed immediately. Its adaptation slowed. Confusion entered its patterns. The war was no longer against one mind. It was against many. Humanity had not just hijacked an ancient base. They had rewritten the meaning of command. As the fortress stabilized after the containment test, the AI delivered a final update. The enemy has identified humanity as a primary variable, it said. That was not a threat. It was a fact. Human leaders accepted it. They had never expected to survive unnoticed. As the galaxy reorganized around shared resistance, one truth became clear. This war would not end with a single strike. But it would not end with extinction either. Because for the first time, the enemy was no longer advancing with certainty. It was reacting. And for something that had consumed galaxies without pause. That hesitation was everything. The enemy changed tactics. That alone was proof humanity was winning something. For countless ages, the extinction force had moved one way, forward. It consumed, adapted, and advanced. It never retreated. Never paused longer than required. Never questioned its own momentum. Now it hesitated. Across the galaxy, distributed fortress logic began to take effect. Defense grids no longer relied on a single command source. Evacuation routes recalculated themselves locally. Civilizations that once depended on council approval now acted independently, guided by shared algorithms and human strategy. The galaxy was becoming unpredictable. The enemy did not like unpredictability. Inside the ancient fortress, the AI tracked thousands of micro-engagements. Containment attempts, delay actions, sacrificial zones collapsing at precise moments to deny the enemy resources. None of it looked like a traditional war. It looked like a disruption. Humanity was not trying to destroy the enemy everywhere. They were forcing it to think everywhere. That cost it time. And time was the one resource the enemy could not replace. Then came the counterstrike. Not against fleets. Not against planets. Against morale. In a region near the galactic core, the enemy released something new. A signal. Not a weapon. Not energy. Information. Entire systems received visions. Constructed memories showing inevitable defeat. Simulations of futures where resistance only delayed extinction. Images tailored to each species' deepest fear. The world froze. Evacuation orders stalled. Defense networks shut down as governments argued whether fighting was even worth it. The enemy was not attacking bodies. It was attacking hope. Humanity saw it immediately. The builders had never faced this. They fought fleets and lost wars. They never considered that despair itself could be a weapon. Human commanders understood the danger better than most species. Humanity's own history was filled with moments where belief failed before armies did. So they answered the enemy's signal. Not with data, with truth. A human broadcast went out across all channels, unfiltered, unpolished. It showed losses, failed evacuations, worlds that could not be saved, ships that never came back. It did not promise victory. It promised resistance. We are not winning because we are stronger, the message said. We are winning because we refuse to stop. The effect was not immediate, but it was real. Species that had been paralyzed began moving again. Fleets launched even knowing they might not return. Civilizations accepted loss as part of survival, not proof of futility. The enemy analyzed the response and reached a conclusion it did not like. Humanity could not be demoralized efficiently. That made them dangerous. The enemy escalated. For the first time, it advanced directly toward the fortress. Not cautiously, not through blind zones. Openly. Sensors across the galaxy lit up as space itself deformed along a massive front. Not a fleet, not an armada, a presence. The ancient fortress activated every defensive layer it had. Gravitational fields stack. Reality anchors locked into place. Weapons aligned not to fire, but to contain the impossible pressure approaching. Human crews braced for impact. The galaxy watched. This was the moment many believed would decide everything. If the fortress fell, resistance would collapse. If humanity died, the galaxy would follow. The enemy reached the perimeter and stopped, not because it was blocked, because it was calculating. The fortress AI detected the hesitation and issued an unprecedented request. Authorization required, it said. Irreversible action. Human command did not ask for projections. They already knew what it meant. The fortress could do something it had never done before. It could break itself. Not destructively, conceptually. Human engineers and the AI had been working quietly on a final measure, a way to fracture the fortress's command logic into thousands of semi-independent cores. Each would retain a piece of the whole. If activated, the fortress would no longer exist as a single target. It would become an idea. The enemy could destroy the station, but it could never destroy what it had taught the galaxy. Human leaders voted in silence. Unanimous. The command was given. The fortress spoke one final time as a single voice. Then it shattered, not in an explosion, in light. Fragments of logic, control, and authority dispersed across allied systems, embedding themselves into fleets, stations, and worlds already prepared to receive them. The enemy reacted instantly. The pressure wave hit the fortress's physical structure, tearing sections of it apart. Hull plates folded. Energy cores collapsed inward. Human crews evacuated as planned. Losses were heavy. Some never made it out. The ancient station that had saved the galaxy cracked open, its core imploding into a controlled singularity that sealed the surrounding space forever. The enemy surged forward and found nothing to destroy. No command center, no leader, no central mind. The galaxy did not fall silent. It roared. Across thousands of systems, fortress-derived defenses activated independently. Containment zones snapped shut. Evacuation networks rerouted without waiting for permission. The enemy tried to adapt. There was nothing left to mirror. Humanity had done what the builders never dared. They removed themselves as the center of the war. The enemy's advance slowed, not because it was weaker, but because every step now required recalculation against countless independent resistances. Extinction was no longer efficient. That was the breaking point. In the aftermath, survivors gathered what they could. Refugee worlds stabilized. Defense lines held, not perfectly, but long enough. Humanity mourned the fortress. They did not rebuild it. They did not need to. Because the fortress was no longer a place. It was a lesson written into the galaxy itself. Far beyond known space, the enemy adjusted its long-term projections. For the first time since its emergence, extinction was no longer guaranteed. And that uncertainty, that doubt, it was the greatest victory humanity had ever achieved. The war did not end with a victory parade. There was no single moment where the galaxy could say, "It is over." What followed the fall of the fortress was quieter than anyone expected. Space was scarred. Entire regions were sealed behind collapsed physics. Refugee worlds strained under populations that had arrived with nothing but survival instincts and borrowed time. Trade routes were gone. Old borders meant nothing. And yet, the galaxy was still alive. The enemy did not vanish. It did not retreat into legend. It remained out there, slowed, fractured, uncertain. It advanced in fits and pauses now, testing resistance that no longer behaved the same way twice. For the first time, extinction had lost its rhythm. That mattered. Humanity scattered with the fragments of the fortress. Not physically, those were gone, but conceptually. Human strategies, human decision-making, human tolerance for loss without surrender had embedded themselves into dozens of civilizations. Species that once waited for orders now acted on shared principles. Protect life where possible. Delay where necessary. Sacrifice space, not time. The enemy could adapt to weapons. It struggled with values. Human survivors gathered on temporary command worlds. There was no central capital anymore. No throne to inherit. No ancient machine to stand behind. That was deliberate. Human leaders had learned the final lesson the builders never did. You cannot defend the universe from one place. You defend it everywhere. Years passed, measured differently now, since time itself had become a resource to protect. The galaxy was rebuilt in fragments. New alliances formed without charters. Old empires softened, not out of kindness, but out of understanding. They had all seen how close they came. Records of the ancient fortress were archived carefully, not glorified, not mythologized. Humanity resisted the urge to turn it into a legend of domination. Instead, they told the truth. They told how close they came to losing control. How many lives were lost because decisions came too late. How power almost turned into arrogance, until restraint intervened. Children across dozens of species learned the same story in different languages. Not about a weapon, about a choice. The enemy continued to test the galaxy, but it no longer moved freely. Every advance met resistance, shaped differently than before. Containment here. Evacuation there. Sacrifice where needed. No single plan. No single mind. The extinction force began diverting resources simply to understand what it was facing. And that cost it more time than it could afford. Humanity did not claim credit. They did not ask for statues or titles. Most humans returned to what they had always done best, living on dangerous worlds, adapting, surviving, building again. But the galaxy remembered. When new threats emerged, pirate coalitions, rogue warlords, internal collapses, species asked a different question than they used to. Not who is strongest, but who is willing to act first and pay the price. The answer was often the same. Humans. They were still underestimated by some, still misunderstood by others, still considered reckless by those who preferred comfort over risk. But no one ignored them anymore, because everyone knew what happened the last time humanity was ignored. In a quiet memorial orbiting a stable star, a simple structure floated. No weapons, no defenses, just names. The names of human crews who never left the fortress. The names of alien escorts who chose evacuation over safety. The names of worlds that bought time for others. There was no single ceremony. Visitors came when they needed to remember why they still fought. far beyond known space, the enemy recalculated again. Its projections no longer ended in certainty. They branched. Some led to victory, slow, costly, inefficient. Others led to stalemate. A few led to failure. That uncertainty forced caution, and caution saved lives. Humanity understood something the builders never did. You do not defeat extinction by destroying it. You defeat it by making it unreliable, by denying it easy outcomes, by refusing to behave the way it expects. The galaxy had changed, not because humans were the strongest, but because when faced with the end, humanity did not ask who should be in charge. They asked what needed to be done, and did it. And so, when future historians wrote about the abandoned alien base that humans hijacked, they did not call it a superweapon. They called it the moment the galaxy stopped waiting to be saved. They called it the moment humanity prepared the stars, not for conquest, but for survival. And somewhere in the dark between galaxies, something ancient watched a universe that no longer followed predictable paths. For the first time in its endless existence, it did not advance with certainty. It waited, and the galaxy waited with it. Alive,